everyone. Today we are beginning another lesson of Birmingham writing sequels. Today we're going to be discussing one of the important aspects of writing which we have, struggled with so far, and something that, pops into your head all the time when you're starting, to write something, or you're expecting your results when, different examiners or graders, start to write your papers. All right. So, last week, as we remember, we talked about, the different structures or the different, way that we could, go about the basics of organization within an essay. So, today, as a lot of you have wondered, I've come to the point to discuss the different criteria that are involved within composition of an essay. So, as you can probably see here, I asked for permission to share this list with you. When examiners or graders, come to start to, grade your papers, there are different criteria they have in mind, and they go through to check your papers and give you the final score based on these criteria. So, on the top of the list, you see relevance. Relevance is a very important, thing when it comes to writing an essay. It means when you are trying to discuss a topic, it's very important to consider this in mind, how this topic could be developed and what you have to say about it. So if we are, for example, discussing the effects of climate change or the causes of climate change, and you write something else about an earthquake, or, for example, something like about education or industry, which is irrelevant to the topic, that's going to score you, get you a pretty low score in terms of relevance here. So, one of the most important, one of the other, criterion on the list is organization. As we have discussed so far, within writing a paragraph or an essay, organization is very important. In different rubrics, it's usually called organization or rhetoric structure or compositional organization of your essay or something like that. So it's very important to bear in mind that organization is a very important issue when writing your paragraphs or writing your essay. Different layouts, how you organize your paragraphs, how you play with them, how you put them, how you arrange them to look nice to the reader and engaging, not to distract them at all or something. This is something that you have to bear in mind strictly. So the next one on our list of criteria, is cohesion. So as you can probably see here, cohesion is very important, which is something like stickiness, something like a metaphor could be used here, like the glue. The glue-like, thing of your essay, something that you want to stick your sentences, your chunks or clauses together. So cohesion is very important, which is going to be the very topic of today's, lesson. And the rest of this list is vocabulary and grammar. As you can probably know, vocabulary and grammar are something that you have to develop over time. This is something that you build through, long stretches of exercise or practice and playing with the language. You have it all in main course classes, reading classes, listening classes. In a way, you are all struggling with it in different ways, in different shapes. So, today, as we discussed, we're going to tap into the cohesion or the cohesive part of your essay, why it is important, how it is important, and how we could manage to develop it in an organized way. So, let's tap into a definition of cohesion first. First things first. Cohesion is the grammatical and lexical linking within a text or sentence that holds a text together and gives it meaning. So, as you can probably see in the photo I've attached in here in this slide, there's this kind of jigsaw puzzle, with two pieces of it. You can probably see cohesion or cohesiveness as a kind of quality feature of the text that makes sentences, stick to one another, makes sentences, make sense in terms of their attachment to their previous or to their following sentences. So, cohesion is an important factor to bear in mind when writing your essay. Let's try it on in an example here. Okay, this is just a couple of sentences I've written here. On my way home, I saw a dog it was looking at me in a strange way. Some people or some students might ask, where's the cohesion in that? It's just two sentences. But as you can, see or dig deeper into these sentences, these pair of sentences, you can see that on my way home yesterday, I saw a dog. It was looking at me in a strange way. This "it" here refers back probably to this dog. The dog was looking at me in a strange way. So I used a pronoun to reference to the dog, to reference or back reference or reference back to this dog. So I didn't mind repeating, this word dog, but it was in a better shape to write a pronoun here, to make it as cohesive as possible. So these two sentences are stuck to one another. These two sentences complete or complement each other. In what ways? The pronoun "it" as it refers back to the previous sentences. So if you see probably the second sentence with the first one missing, you can figure out that there's one missing, at least one missing before this sentence, the second one. So this "it" has to refer back to something else in the immediate context of it. So let's try a couple of sentences or another text, let's say, without the cohesive quality. Okay, I've written different chunks, a couple of sentences here, as you can probably see on the screen. I studied in a very good university. It was looking at me in a strange way. I decided to study hard. So if you look deeper into these couple of sentences, you can see at the beginning of your, you're just forming a thought of this "it," this pronoun here, referring back to the university here in the previous sentence. But your kind of hypothesis or assumption is usually marked false, when you proceed with the sentence as "it was looking at me in a strange way." So you can you can probably know that never universities look at you, or never universities have the ability, to look at people. So it's a false statement in cohesive terms. So these two sentences cannot complement each other. They cannot stick to one another. This sentence cannot follow the previous sentence in a cohesive manner, let's say. And if you, try to, run the same test on the third and the second sentence again, "it was looking at me in a strange way. I decided to study hard." Still, they don't make any sense, as you can see here. So because this "I decided to study hard" does not have anything to do with its preceding sentence, with its previous sentence in a cohesive way. So they cannot complement each other. They cannot make a formed unity, together. So, how is cohesion, usually administered? How is cohesion earned within composition of an essay? So, there are two different categories when it comes down to cohesion: lexical cohesion and grammatical one. So, how are they different? Lexical cohesion is another feature or, let's say, characteristic of composition, which dictates the reader to use lexical fields or sometimes repetitions. Some students have always asked me, "Okay, teacher, we have to avoid repetition at all costs. It's not something beautiful, attractive to our reader when we try, for example, to repeat words and words and words over and over in our essay." Yeah, that's true in some way, but thing is, lexical repetitions sometimes give the reader a clue as what you're going to write about or what your entire essay's topic is going to be about. So it's important to use some sort of repetitions or lexical fields in your grammatical cohesion part of your essay. So thing is, a strategy to avoid repetitions that I've always taught in my classes of writing is that you can use synonyms, antonyms, or this kind of things or words in similar meaning to one another. This can help the reader figure out what they're going to write about. For example, as probably you're looking at depression, that was the topic of our previous lesson. Depression could be substituted by different words to represent its meaning semantically in a way in order to avoid the repetition. Or if you can probably see a lexical field, any different words related to one another, in different ways. It could form or develop a kind of lexical lexical set that forms cohesiveness throughout your essay in lexical terms. The grammatical, cohesion or cohesiveness is another, part of cohesion that we could discuss here. It's called some references call it rhetoric, or some references call it discourse structure, discourse cohesiveness. So it's very important to bear in mind the list is very long. I have tried to avoid it here, but things like referencing, using pronouns or linkers, cohesive ties, as you're familiar with. We have discussed so far, within composition of paragraphs, single paragraphs. These are all included or contained through the context of grammatical cohesion. So let's try it on here. This text, as you can probably see here, have a look, please. I'm going to, tap into the lexical cohesiveness of this text by analyzing and discussing different parts of it. As you can probably see, beforehand, I've tried to highlight some words, and stretch them throughout the text, kind of make them bold for you to understand how they form a type of cohesiveness throughout the text, a lexical one actually. So let's read it together. Interpersonal variables could lead to people getting depressed. These psychological issues can include stress, anxiety, and personality disorders, which might get people even closer to a state of depression. Such problems often originate in a person's private life and can have dramatic effects on their mood. Work, for example, plays a significant role in driving up levels of stress in individuals and ultimately dragging them into loneliness. So you can see some words are highlighted out in the text. Let's see how they form cohesion, lexically. So the word depressed in the first line is pretty much the topic of our essay. As you can probably remember, this was our last lesson's topic, were the causes of depression. So depression is the topic. A lexical field around the core center of depression could form words like psychological, stress, anxiety, personal disorders, again, depression, mood, loneliness, and stress. These words, as you can probably see here, stress is repeated here, and depression in different forms from the same family. So these forms relating to the same lexical family form a lexical field which build stickiness or cohesiveness of my paragraph here. Anyone with the basic, literacy in English can figure out that this paragraph is definitely talking about the center of depression. Okay. So one interesting, experiment I've done here is to try the same, the paragraph with a different criterion, which is grammatical cohesion. Grammatical cohesion, as you know, is something that relates to rhetoric structure of your essay, something that makes your essay, stick together using grammatical ties or grammatical devices. So here I have used a strategy of referencing, using pronouns, Let's see. The words in blue, for example, interpersonal variables could also lead to people getting depressed. These psychological issues, blah, blah, blah. So you probably can guess. This refers back, it refers back to the subject of this preceding sentence, which is intrapersonal variables. You can figure out that this has a referent. This pronoun has a referent, which is hidden through its previous sentence here. So another one, let's try it out. Stress, anxiety, and personality disorder, which might get people even closer to a state of depression. Such problems often originate in something. So such problems is another type of referencing here, and it refers back to its preceding sentence. Stress, anxiety, and personality disorder are targets of this pronoun, the referent. Another one I have tried here. A person's private life can have dramatic effects on their mood. Their mood has another referent here, which is a person in green here. And another one, work, for example, plays a significant role in driving up levels of stress in individuals and ultimately dragging them into loneliness. So this them here again, back references to individuals in its previous immediate context. So, the thing is, usually different types of pronouns back reference, to their reference in their preceding or previous immediate context. It is sometimes, occasionally true that sometimes, some words like pronouns, forward reference to their following reference, to their following context, immediate context in the text, but it is usually not true in academic essay because most of the time this type of, forward referencing occurs in literal texts which are not really trying to, struggle with in our lessons here. So, cohesive ties, the topic of this couple of weeks of composition of essays, cause essays. We've given you a kind of homework, which is writing a cause essay about the causes of immigration, as you can probably remember. So, it's important to bear in mind that cohesive ties, as you know it by the name linkers, are also important to make your text or sentences follow one another, stick to one another, and form cohesion throughout your text. So, the causal conjuncts here, as you can probably see, as a consequence, as a result, because, or consequently, despite, due to, for that reason, so as to, so that, therefore, and thus. As you know, this list is not really exhaustive, but I have tried to include as many as that I can, here to help you out using these cohesive ties or linkers throughout your cause essays for this week or the following weeks that you're going to be involved in. So, let's try one of them, for example. Okay? So, let's read it together. One of the reasons which may cause depression in people could be social isolation during a pandemic. For example, people are advised to stay home and exercise self-isolation. This situation may consequently bring about negative feelings in individuals and push them towards depression. So, I've highlighted consequently here. So, you can see this consequently, this linker here, forms a kind of circle, a cohesive circle, a loop, kind of a loop, because in the topic sentence of my paragraph here, I've talked about one of the reasons that may cause depression, which is social isolation. Then I have tried to elaborate, to give details, support this thing with my circle or cycle of, cohesion here, because I've explained how social isolation could, lead or develop into a state of depression here. So, during the pandemic, for example, people are advised to stay home and exercise self-isolation. This situation may consequently. So, you can see that this situation could have an impact or consequence. Some people say that cause and effect essays are not, different or separate, dichotomies. They cannot be separately taught. But, it's best, to figure out, cause and effect in a circle, in a cycle, that they counteract to one another, and they kind of affect, the whole essay that you're writing. So this consequence is negative feelings. This negative feelings is, again, another meaning or another rewarding for depression in the topic sentence, which is the very first sentence of your essay. So, you remember the topic for this week's writing homework is the causes of migration. I just want to assign you a piece of homework. Try to, tap into this list once again and try to, use as many as these cohesive ties in your essay as possible. Try to not overdo it with using these words, but, in a way, try to use them appropriately in your essay. For example, if you're trying to write about a cycle of migration, how it happens, how it pushes individuals in order to leave their countries, you can use different, for example, result here, cohesive ties or linkers. As a result, for example, something happens. These things can make the reader understand, follow through your essay in a better way, make them feel better when they're reading your essay, especially here at university. The examiners are great who are going to score your papers in the most logical way. We are struggling the words here, trying to figure out what you're writing. So it's best to, add some, add the flavor of cohesion into your essays and try to figure it out beforehand for us. Thank you again, so much, our viewers and audience here, for watching our lesson about writing and specifically cohesion for Birmingham level. I wish you a very, very good week and enjoy it. Thank you so much.